In October 2024, a man went camping in the Montana wilderness to escape the noise of everyday life. He set up his tent near Moose Creek, lit a fire, and cracked open a cold beer under the stars. But he wasn't alone. Someone was watching him from the shadows. And by morning, he would be dead, beaten with a block of wood, struck with an axe, stabbed with a screwdriver. This is the story of Dustin Kjersem and the monster who destroyed him. Dustin Kjersem was a 35-year-old man from Bozeman, Montana, a town nestled between mountain ranges and wide-open skies. He was the kind of person people gravitated toward. His mother, Janet, would later describe him as a wonderful person who loved helping others. He had a girlfriend who adored him, a sister who looked up to him, and a life that, by all accounts, was just beginning to flourish. Dustin loved the outdoors, hiking, fishing, camping. Montana was his playground, and he took every opportunity to disconnect from the world and reconnect with nature. In mid-October 2024, he packed his gear and headed to a remote campsite along Moose Creek, just outside Big Sky. It was supposed to be a peaceful getaway, a few days alone with his thoughts, the crisp autumn air, and the crackling of a campfire. But peace was the last thing waiting for him there. The campsite was isolated. No cell service, no nearby roads, just trees, silence, and the occasional rustle of wildlife. Dustin arrived, set up his tent, and began settling in for the night. He had a cooler packed with drinks, his firearms for protection, and his cell phones tucked away in his belongings. Then someone arrived. Daren Christopher Abbey, a 42-year-old man with a criminal past and a darkness he carried like a shadow. What happened next can only be pieced together from the horror left behind. Abbey didn't just attack Dustin, he obliterated him. First, a block of wood, swung with brutal force. Then, an axe, chopping into flesh and bone. Finally, a screwdriver driven deep into Dustin's skull. The attack was savage, unrelenting. When it was over, Dustin Kjersem lay dead in his own campsite, surrounded by the very wilderness he loved. And Abbey, he didn't run. Not yet. When Dustin didn't return home as planned, his girlfriend grew worried. She drove out to Moose Creek, hoping to find him safe. Instead, she found a nightmare. Dustin's body, the campsite in disarray, and an eerie silence that seemed to scream something terrible had happened here. Authorities were called immediately. The Gallatin County Sheriff's Office and the Montana Department of Justice launched an investigation, but the scene was confusing. Dustin's firearms were missing, his cooler gone, his cell phones vanished. It looked like a robbery, but the brutality of the murder suggested something far more sinister. Detectives combed the area for clues, footprints, fingerprints, anything that could point them toward a suspect. But the wilderness had a way of swallowing secrets. Days passed, the trail grew cold, and the killer seemed to have disappeared into thin air. The missing items became the focus of the investigation. Was this a targeted attack? A robbery gone wrong, or something random, a chance encounter that spiraled into violence? Theories swirled. Some investigators believed Dustin may have known his killer. Others thought it could have been a transient passing through the area. But then Abbey made a mistake. After the murder, he returned to the campsite. Not once, but twice. The first time to steal more of Dustin's belongings. The second time to cover his tracks, so he thought. He moved items, concealed evidence, tried to erase himself from the scene. But he missed something. Something small. Something he never thought would matter. A beer can. Inside Dustin's tent, investigators found a single beer can. It seemed insignificant at first, just another piece of trash left behind. But forensic teams collected it anyway, and when they ran the DNA, they got a match. Daren Christopher Abbey. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place. Abbey's criminal history was pulled. His whereabouts were traced, and on a cold November morning, authorities moved in. He was arrested, brought into custody, and charged with deliberate homicide and 2 counts of tampering with evidence. The DNA was irrefutable, the timeline matched, and the stolen items, many were recovered from Abbey's possession. The case against him was airtight, but Abbey had his own story, and it was one he would cling to all the way to trial. In November 2025, Daren Christopher Abbey stood trial in Gallatin County. The courtroom was packed. Dustin's family sat in the front row, their faces etched with pain and rage. For 6 days, the jury heard the evidence, the DNA, the stolen items, the horrific injuries inflicted on Dustin's body. And then Abbey took the stand. He admitted to killing Dustin, but he claimed it was self-defense, that Dustin had attacked him first, that he was only trying to protect himself. The jury didn't buy it. They saw the brutality, the multiple weapons, the repeated blows to Dustin's skull, the stolen belongings, the return trips to cover his tracks. This wasn't self-defense. This was murder, cold, calculated, and utterly senseless. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty on all counts. At the sentencing hearing, 8 of Dustin's loved ones took the stand. His mother spoke of the wonderful son she lost. His girlfriend described finding his body, the moment her heart broke and her sense of safety evaporated forever. His sister pointed to a video shown in court where Abbey appeared joyful just hours after the murder. No remorse, no humanity. Abbey himself addressed the court, claiming he never intended this to happen and asking Dustin's family to find it in your hearts to forgive me. But the damage was done. On February 3, 2026, Judge Peter Oman delivered the sentence: 100 years in the Montana State Prison with an 80-year parole restriction. Abbey will spend the rest of his life behind bars, a fate the judge deemed necessary, calling him a serious concern and threat to the public. Abbey's reaction: defiance, anger. As he was led away, he shouted, "Well, you'll be appealing your crooked-ass court system." Dustin Kjersem went into the wilderness seeking peace. Instead, he found a monster. Daren Christopher Abbey took everything from him: his life, his future, his loved ones' sense of safety. But in the end, justice prevailed. Abbey will never walk free. He will never feel the Montana air on his face again. He will never harm another soul. But for Dustin's family, the pain will never fully heal. His mother will never hear his voice again. His girlfriend will never feel his embrace. His sister will never see him smile. Gallatin County Attorney Audrey Cromwell said it best: Abbey is among those meant to be separated from society. The wilderness of Montana is vast and beautiful, but on one October night in 2024, it became a graveyard, and the man who made it so will die in a cage.